All right. It says the Hangout is live. Hello, everybody. This is Greg Ryder, CEO of Angel Investors Network. And I wanted to say howdy to everybody. And I came on a little bit early to welcome you. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. And you can hear me. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you can hear me okay, go ahead, type in that chat box. Yes, Greg, I can hear you. Or how about this? Just type in your name and what city you're from, where you're from. And we'll start to make sure you guys can hear us okay and you're on board and where you're from, and I'll welcome you. And then we're going to get started here a few minutes after the hour. So I like to start on time, but I know people always show up a little bit late. And then for those of you who are hearing me for the first time, maybe you've never experienced a Google Hangout, we are a little bit delayed. This is a live broadcast. There is no recording going on here. We're live. And because it's live, it's anywhere between like a 10-second to as much as a 20-second delay. So you guys are just now hearing me say, tell me that where you're from and if you can hear me. So I'm stalling as people start to see it. So I say Robin is from Colorado. Thank you for joining us, Robin. We appreciate it. And I see Ed's here from Escondido. Thanks for joining us, Ed. And then I see Mary. Thank you for joining us, Mary. Appreciate it. So you guys can just jump on in. Let us know your name and where you're from. We're going to get started. We have an amazing little presentation and interview that we're going to do today. It's going to be very exciting, very fun, very beneficial. And for those of you who have never really listened to me or heard what I'm all about, so Angel Investors Network, our mission is to help entrepreneurs succeed and to perpetuate free enterprise and capitalism. We're all about free enterprise and capitalism, and we want entrepreneurs to succeed, create jobs, stimulate the economy, all that kind of stuff. And so we're real big on education, learning things, exposing you to things. I love this thing that, I'm going to write my next book's going to be called The Law of Exposure, that you don't know what you don't know. So by taking time to learn more, you can accomplish more. And with that being said, I want to thank you for being here and being on time, being early. A few people are even early. And we value your time. Like, I really value your time. And I hope you value my time. Like, we're busy people. There's a lot going on in the world. And for that you're stopping whatever you're doing to take time to listen to us, we appreciate that. I know I do, and my guest does. And with that being said, I want to try to promise you and do everything I can to make sure this is a valuable use of your time. We're not doing this for fun. I mean, although we will have fun, but you get my point. We want to do something that's valuable of your time. So I see Art from New York. Thanks for joining us, Art. And I see Maya from Bragg, California. Thanks for joining us, Maya. And Don from Naples, Florida. Thanks for joining us. So if you're just now joining us, I can see that the people are jumping online. Go ahead, let me know where you're coming from and that you can hear us okay. But it appears that everybody can hear us just fine, or hear me just fine. So that's fantastic. And what we're going to do is we're going to get going here in about 1 minute. And I'm going to introduce our guests and talk to you about what we're going to be talking about. I just want to make sure everyone can hear us okay and get things going with that. I got to tell you, we do this on a regular basis, and it is just so cool to meet people that have accomplished and taken themselves to different levels. And we all have a perspective, right? So everyone has a perspective on what success is, what accomplishments are. And my guest tonight is very humble, and he doesn't think quite of his accomplishments like I do. But he has had some world experiences that we can all benefit and value from, and revolving the branding and marketing and apparel. And when it comes to branding and marketing, what we're going to be talking about tonight, I can't tell you, as an investment banker and as somebody in that world, brands are valuable. Like you take out the intrinsic value of Nike, and what's Nike worth, right? That brand, if I could give you some stats on the value of their sales and revenues and earnings, and then you add on the brand value, it's just off the charts. So, and that's just a big example. But in small examples, we want to help you turn your business into a brand that helps increase your intrinsic value. So when it comes time to an exit, you put more money in your pocket. So again, this is fantastic. I see we got a number of people on here. Theodore from Aruba. Hey, Theodore. So Theodore from Aruba actually came to our last event. He traveled, halfway around the world to come to our last Angel Money Marketing Live. So we appreciate you joining in. And we have another guy from Rock, New York. So, there's Andrea from Palm Desert. Thanks, Andrea. So Andrea's got a little granddaughter who's an up-and-coming star. She's awesome, Sarah. And Sarah might even be on today. because she wants to build a brand as well. So I'm going to go ahead and officially get started. Enough of this jibber jabber. So my name is Greg Ryder. I'm the CEO of Angel Investors Network. We're all about helping entrepreneurs succeed. We want to help you understand how to build a business, grow a business, market your product or service, and when in fact you're worthy of investment capital and you need investment capital, we do have a network of investors nationwide, and we help entrepreneurs get funding. We have an event called Angel Money Marketing Live that we do. And we also have another special event that we're doing coming up in July called the Pitch Tank, and maybe we'll talk about that towards the end. But today I want to introduce Bernd Ullman. And Bernd Ullman is our guest, and we've recently been able to form a partnership and a business together, and we're doing some stuff together. But I wanted to bring him and share him with you guys, and he's gracious to share his time with you and talk about branding and talk about marketing. And to give you an idea, Bernd has been in the apparel industry for decades, and he's worked with some very, very big brands that everybody's probably heard of. Everybody from Russell Simmons and Fat Farms to Damon John from Shark Tank and his FUBU, and currently working with the CEO of Star Branding. And Star Branding's helped the biggest celebrities in the world: Jennifer Lopez, Adam Levine, Nicki Minaj, Steven Tyler. They've done stuff with American Idol. He's business partners with Tommy Hilfiger and his brother Andy, and their business partner Joe LaMonstra, I think I pronounced that right. So he's just an amazing guy that's sitting in the middle of New York City during the day when he works. Where at? At the craziest zoo ever, and that's Trump Towers, because he actually offices right underneath Donald Trump. And because of the election, what's going on, it's an absolute zoo. Bernd, I want to say thanks for joining us today. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time and look forward to having a good time.
Thank you, Greg. Hi, everybody. This is great. I'm really happy to be here. This is awesome. Love that you're doing.
So tell us real quick about that zoo that you were telling me you have to go through every day to get to your office.
It's unbelievable. Every day I make it to my office, it feels like I have arrived in Europe, because I have to make it through, metal detectors, scanners, searches, open bags. It's the whole 9 yards and then some. The whole place, when Donald is in town, we're never in doubt, because A, you have the protesters outside, you have the Fox News and all the camera crews, the barriers, the police, and then the metal detectors, the searches, and then inside it is crawling with Secret Service personnel all over the place. So it's something else. Oh my gosh.
And you get to witness this firsthand. We just get to watch it on the nightly news every night. It's crazy what's going on. So we won't go down that politics road. That could be a little. That could be a little bit. So Bernd, you have been in this apparel industry and working on building brands and helping create wealth for how many years? 30 years, 40 years? How long have you been doing this?
Well, let's just leave it at 30 plus years. How about that?
Okay, 30 plus years. And you started, like, who was Russell Simmons? Like, you were with that. Before that, you were Donna Carroll. Give us a little history of kind of, a little chronological history of where you started and kind of where you're at now. Just a few minutes.
Okay, you got it. Well, so you probably hear that I speak with a little bit of accent, and it's not from the Bronx and it's not from Brooklyn. It's actually from Norway. So I'm supposed to be tall and blonde with blue eyes. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm originally from Norway. Went to business school in Copenhagen, Denmark. Got my master's there, but that's not the real point of this. While there, I started Scandinavia's first home delivery of pizza, Pizza Pronto. And my very first business trip in my life was while I was a student at Copenhagen Business School. I went to Baltimore to check out the pizza truck that I absolutely could not afford to import into Denmark, be that as it may. So I started out as an entrepreneur. I then left Denmark and I moved to Los Angeles and formed a company with the brilliant name Nor Partners, because we were Norwegian partners. So again, we started our own company, had not been in the fashion industry, but we realized that we were all wearing clothes. So back in the day, it seemed like a great idea to start a clothing company. So I really got my start in the fashion industry with my own company back in the mid-'80s in Los Angeles. Fast forwarding, I have been at obviously a number of companies since then, as you said, More recent and recent, taking us back, I don't know, 20 years. I spent around 5 years at Donna Karan. I was a corporate vice president at Donna Karan. I was in charge of international. It was very interesting. While there, we went through this whole metamorphosis of the business. When I joined, they were doing around $40 million probably internationally, and I was heading up international for them. And when I left, we were at around $300 million in international. I opened, for instance, 85 stores under license all over the world. So a lot of fun. I went from Donna, and you mentioned Damon John, who is now at Shark Tank and doing extremely well. That was the early days of launching FUBU. And he had a good friend, LL Cool J, who was part of it as the face of the brand, and a tremendous job of branding. It was back in the day when MTV was new, and we spent a lot of time and effort putting products on celebrities and getting it in front of people. And from there, you're right, went on to Russell Simmons. It was Russell and Kimura with Fat Farm and Baby Fat. Another 5 great years. And then ultimately from there, forming Star Branding in partnership, as you said, with Tommy and Andy Hilfiger and Joe Lamastro. And here we are. A lot of hard work and some luck later. It's gone pretty well for everybody.
Well, you know what's so cool about that is that obviously when you've gone through that and you've done deals that ended up in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and even I know you've told me before about the Kohl's deal, which we can talk about later or whatever, but the $1 billion deal, it's the wisdom that you get from that, and it's like the mistakes that you make and you learn from, and the success that you have that you learn from, you really can really share some good stuff with us. So one things that I want to start with that I just thought of as you were talking is I use this term celebritizing your brand. Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit about your insights about how the average entrepreneur could leverage celebrity endorsements, licensing, that kind of stuff. And that's the other thing we're going to talk about tonight's licensing. But yeah, give people your insights on and how important that is and can be for a particular company or for a particular brand, is to associate themselves with celebrities as well as cons associated with that.
Okay, so I will say, honestly, I think every brand and every situation is different. And I don't think there is any one answer that fits everybody. Some brands lend themselves to celebrity endorsement, and some brands actually end up being the celebrity itself. There are things that you can do to make your brand king. So when we named ourselves Star Branding, we had a big discussion in the beginning. In its purest form, we're in essence saying, well, our argument is that stars can be brands. But we were saying that's not the full story. So there is a second connotation, that is brands can be stars as well. Just to have said that. Now to answer your question, you know, what you get when you have the ability to align yourself with celebrity is that in essence, you get to put the brand visibility on steroids, if you like, because you're tapping into someone's celebrity, someone's visibility, someone's wherewithal in the universe. So it can be very powerful when it is done correctly. But bear in mind, having celebrity aligned with the brand is not the universally correct answer. I would say if there is one word that permeates everything we do in branding, it is authenticity. So if the connection is not viewed as authentic in the mind of the consumer, you're better off not doing it. And what I mean by that, you can have incredibly well-known people that just may simply not be right for a brand or a look, or you can have incredibly well-known brand names that may not translate into fashion. For instance, Vaseline. I think we all know what Vaseline is. Vaseline is actually a brand name. We think of it now as a product genre. I don't know that Vaseline clothing would be great fashion. It's not obvious that they, in essence, have a license or a right to be fashion, even though I would say most people recognize the name Vaseline. And similarly, you may have someone, and I don't want to call anyone out, but you may have somebody out there who is incredibly well known. But if that person is not viewed as someone with a great fashion sense, it is not believable to the end consumer that this person would add value to the brand. And it could actually be damaging. So it's a little more tricky, Greg, than just tapping into the celebrity. Now, I can go on just a little bit. There's one other thing. Why is the celebrity so valuable? Well, if it's done right, you know, every celebrity today worth their salt has a social media following. And many of them have a very tight-knit fan community. And when done right, you can really, in essence, monetize the value of the celebrity. I would argue that the holy grail of today's marketing universe is really how to credibly monetize social media. And I don't even know that we have solved it 100% yet.
No, I like that. And I think about that. And I think about companies like, well, now I'm getting an echo. Are you hearing an echo? Or I guess it went away.
You're just on the delay, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Companies like every company you can think of, like Ford and Toyota and fast food joints, they all use celebrities to help borrow trust, to borrow credibility, to help promote their product, to get somebody's attention, and a lot of times just an attention getter. But I agree with what, I just learned a little bit about you about what you said, because I'm trying to think about, we see so many companies coming to us that need investors, need money, that they're not in the apparel space, the skateboard company or a biotech company or this. And so, but I still think in every situation, every corporation, they need to be cognizant of their brand and their brand image. And that's where you're the expert at that. And why don't you talk about some of the different things that you work with when creating that brand DNA, or how important a brand DNA is. And I know you're in the apparel world, but it's also tied to marketing. It's tied to your corporation. It's tied to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So in essence, typically when we are tasked with a challenge of creating a new brand, and specifically, and this holds true for any brand, but we have done, very often when you end up creating new brands from scratch, it is when a celebrity comes to you and they want to launch their own fashion brand. In essence, they have a brand already. They have a reason for why they became celebrities in the first place. And then our job is in essence to capture what is unique and special about these individuals, and somehow translate that into what that looks like in fashion. So customarily, we end up in a process where we create a tangible product or an output that we customarily refer to as a brand book. And in that brand book, we really start with the brand, or in this case, the celebrity, and we say, okay, what is special? What is unique? The person is, at this point, more sophisticated, more mature, or she is young, she is fun, she is fashionable. And you try to harvest all of that. And then you start going into a process where you say, okay, well, with that, what is the name of this brand? So if you take, for instance, someone like a Jennifer Lopez, in her first iteration, she was really very much of the hip hop era and smoldering hot, and she was J-Lo. And a lot of people have heard about Jenny from the Block. The second time around, when we did the license that we did for her with Kohl's, at this point, she was a mom, more established, more mature, and there was a real interesting conversation. What is the name of the brand? Is it J-Lo? Is it Jenny? Is it Jennifer by Jennifer Lopez? Is there something else sophisticated by Jennifer Lopez? So we went through a whole process. Ultimately, we felt in that case that the power of her name was so strong that to have her full name as the label is where we ended up. So the collection is Jennifer Lopez. You now go through a whole process of, okay, what does it look like? what does the neck label look like? Is it sophisticated, so the label is gold with black lettering, or is it maybe the reverse? It's black with gold. What is the font? Is it block? Is it script, which could look more feminine? So you go through a whole process where you analyze every single consumer touch point. So you do the label, you do the hang tag, you do the packaging, you do the store environment, because all of these different consumer touch points are part of the overall branding message, and they have to all be consistent, and they have to all be on brand, because again, as I said earlier, it goes back to authenticity and credibility in the mind of the consumer. So I want to just add one more thing, Greg, about the purpose of the brand book, just to kind of finish that thought. And the thought is, once you create this vehicle, you actually have, for lack of a better term, a brand Bible. And what it does is it now allows everyone else that get in touch with the brand to have a complete roadmap to what the brand is supposed to look like. So you can share the brand book with the manufacturer, or as you mentioned, we will be talking about licensing. You can share the brand book with all your prospective licensees. And ultimately what happens now is that the consumer doesn't care if it was factory X or factory Y that made the pant or the jean or the skirt. And they don't care if the eyewear was made by a whole different company because it's made under license. To them, they're purchasing, in this example, the Jennifer Lopez brand. So what is incredibly important is that the brand is consistent in the mind of the consumer, and that's what having a brand book does.
No, and I have a little experience with that, and I'm going to jump into licensing here in a minute, because I did a deal with DreamWorks, and when I did a deal with DreamWorks, we licensed the rights to use Shrek. Mm-hmm. And when we did that, I got their style guide, and it just blew me away. It was like pixel by pixel, color by color, line by line. Everything had to be perfect because they were protecting their brand.
That's exactly right.
So it's pretty amazing. But let me ask you this question. So, with these clients that you've worked with, and you told me that the Kohl's deal was like projected to be like a $3.5 billion deal, which was like the largest deals ever. What's it like working with? I mean, like, we put these celebrities at that level on a different pedestal, but what's it like working with the Jennifer Lopez or some of these big celebrities?
Okay, so that's a good question, and we worked with a lot of them, obviously. And I have to say, if there's one thing I feel that all of them have in common, is that there are no accidents. It didn't just happen. None of them just stumbled upon it. The one thing that I feel they all have in common, and I don't care who it is, Jennifer, Nicki Minaj, Adam Levine, the list goes on. It's Steven Tyler, the Rolling Stones, Damon John, LL Cool J. They all, Russell too, Russell and Kimura, they all have this one unique, uncanny ability. And that is, in that very moment, when you're in front of them, they can make you feel like you're the only thing that matters in the world. They have this ability to focus in and to be in the now. And they have all gotten there through one thing that they all have in common, and that is incredibly hard work. The willingness to put in the efforts, to daring to dream really big, and to then march to their own drummer to fulfill those dreams. So it's a little humbling to be with them. Not because I'm awestruck and I've met a lot of celebrities, but these are people that had a vision, and they have been able to execute, and they stay the path. And one of the reasons why we do the brand book, and one of the reasons why we care so much, is it is also incredibly personal. So if you create a brand and you come up with a name that's I see a great eagle behind you. So let's say you create Eagle Fashion. Well, that's all well and good, and you care, and Eagle Fashion is yours. However, if your brand is called Greg Reiter, it bears your name. And if you have the right to be a brand because you spend so much time and so much effort within another field, that you built a whole audience and a universe and an increment, or rather a core revenue stream, then you're going to care a whole lot about what happens to the Greg Reiter brand. Because if it's mismanaged, if it's not done right, it actually, not only is it your name that gets tainted, but it has the ability to actually detract from all the other stuff you worked so hard on creating. So in summation, very personable and an awful lot of hard work. That's really what they all have in common.
No, and I think one of the things that I want every entrepreneur and everybody listening to think about, it doesn't matter what business you're in, what you're doing, you work for somebody else, you are your brand, the way you treat people, the way you talk to people, everything you do and everything about you. So here's a takeaway for every company out there. Create your own brand book. Get with your team. If you have one, sit down. What fonts do you always use? What color schemes do you always use? How do you answer the phone? What's the script to answer the phone at your office?
Yep.
Everything you do, put it in for lack of this, a brand book that's going to represent you and your company the way you want it represented. And you know how that should be is in the form of excellence, right? The top 10% of people that earn 80% of the money are there because of excellence, because of hard work, because they believe they can, and they're always focused on excellence, right? And providing an excellent product, an excellent mindset, an excellent experience. And again, that's all part of your brand. And at the end of the day, it makes you more valuable to investors. It makes you more valuable to the company that might buy you out. It makes you just more valuable. And then you combine them, and Bert and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, when you combine your excellence and your brand with celebrity, and you get and you do have the ability to put those fit together, that's where you can really demand high prices for what you do, higher prices. Like, again, you go look at like a Rolls Royce. I mean, the Rolls Royce car compared to like a BMW or something, not much difference in the mechanics and how the car's built and the engines and the frame. But Rolls Royce gets hundreds of thousands of dollars more because they've established that brand and they can demand it, and they've celebritized the brand in a lot of ways. And it kind of goes across the board with that kind of stuff.
No, I agree with that. I would like to just add one more thing to what you said. So I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. One word that we haven't used yet, which I think is incredibly important, is brand equity. So all of these efforts serve one purpose, and that is to increase the value of your brand. So there are a lot of products out there that has a label or a name attached to it. That doesn't make a brand. So just calling whatever you are selling, whatever you're doing, like just calling it by name, that's not branding. That's not a brand. So having a brand is to start really with, as we said, your core DNA. And it really begins with what's your history? What's the origins of the brand? What does it stand for? What's the brand mission? What are you solving? Very, very important. I mean, the reality is, and I say this often, people will forget what you say. They will probably also forget what you do. They never forget how you make them feel. Branding is a lot about how you make the consumer feel. So you need to start by saying, what is my history? What are we about? Where do we come from? And of course, where do we want to be? And staying on brand and staying true to the brand message is critical. And when you do that, you get rewarded, because that brand equity, it's an intangible and it actually has a value. When we did actually the Fat Fashions brand, Russell's Fat Farm and Baby Fat, they were bought by a big multi-billion-dollar fashion conglomerate called Kelwood. And when they bought the brand, they paid a certain multiple. And part of what they paid for and part of what they put on their books was the goodwill of the brand, the value of the brand name.
I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm going, you know, I wish I would have met you years ago, because like Angel Investors Network, you know, that brand has been online for a long time, since 1997. I've never had this conversation, never even thought about it, never positioned myself. And I'm going, I want it to live on forever. And I've started to kind of create that messaging and how we make people feel. And again, my passion is free enterprise, capitalism, entrepreneurs succeed, create the jobs, early adapters. You know, I love all that kind of stuff. So maybe you're going to have to I'm going to have to hire you to coach me on, you know, because you know what, here's the other thing too. And I'm going to say this, you tell me if I'm wrong, correct me. It's never too late to start to reposition and really put some focus on what that is, what that messaging is to your consumer.
And quite frankly, you know, branding isn't static. Brands do evolve. So that's important too. You know, let's say you launched in the 90s. You may have had a message that was completely and utterly relevant back then. Just think about the changes we have seen in society since late 1990s to where we are today. Social media, internet, how people think, how they market, where people shop. It stands to reason that while your core values and your beliefs haven't changed, your messaging may be in need of enhancements.
Yep. No, and again, I'm going to come up with an example. So just yesterday, a guy was in our office and he's got a corporation. Well, he didn't actually have a corporation. He was going to form, he has a company name. And he had 3 or 4 inventions that really weren't in the same space. And each invention had a name that was kind of, explanatory of what that product was. And I'm like, this guy had some really cool inventions. I can't wait to share this with you. But I'm going to leave it at that until we get some more stuff with him. But my question to you is, in that formation stage, and you're a startup, because we did a lot of startup early stage, and you have these products, how important is it from your perspective to think a little bit further, a couple chess moves ahead? Which, by the way, I heard Brian Tracy, one of my mentors, say the real big money makers and the wealth creators have the ability to think ahead and foresee steps in future like a chess player. But anyway, thinking ahead, how important is it to them to think, okay, I got the product name, but what do I do with my company name, and how do I build a brand when I have multiple products? I'm an inventor and they don't really fit. What would you be your best advice for a guy like that?
Yeah, no, I do think that it's absolutely critical that you have a brand and a message that you can communicate out to the end user. So with someone like that, that's an example in the example you gave, and you're saying that these you refer to the products as inventions, but they were all different. I would probably come up with an overarching name for my enterprise that speaks to innovation, and whether it is as direct at, you know, innovate or intuit or whatever that name is, I would probably have one umbrella name that can be anything that has to do with newness, evolution, invention. And then all of a sudden, everything is on brand, even though they're in separate fields. If they have anything to do with being new, or if you need to back it by a trademark, or you need to protect some rights, then you're technically on brand and your messaging is consistent. And I think it's very valuable to do that. And as you said, it's never too late to do it, but it's certainly timely to do it when you're starting out.
No, that's great advice. I love that. I wish I'm gonna share that with them, and I'll give you credit for it. But that's fantastic advice, because then I'm thinking about, like you, and you've done a ton of retail. If they get success with one product at retail under a well thought out innovation type brand, and they have another invention come through, they can leverage that brand equity to get the next product through retail and the next product through retail.
Yeah, because that's the value of brand. So it buys you credibility. So once you've done it once and it worked, now people are more inclined to listen to you. The first time out, there's going to be a bunch of naysayers. You know, a lot of people that know better, right? Yeah. Once you've done something successfully, nothing creates success as much as success. It's unbelievable. Everybody loves the winner, right? So you've done it once, and you've done it under a success, you know, under a brand name, and you have now all of a sudden that's part of your umbrella. Well, the audience will just increase dramatically next time around. Telling you that.
That's where that saying, the rich get richer, because they paid the hard work.
I guess that's what we just said, right?
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to go, I've kind of got my thought process. So for some of you guys that just joined us, you're listening on, this is Greg Reiter, CEO of Angel Investor Network. I'm interviewing Bernd Ohlman, CEO of Star Branding. We're talking about branding and marketing. What we're going to do is, if you have any questions, go ahead, get them ready, and type in question and put it in the chat box. And we are going to get to your questions in about 10 to 15 minutes. But the next thing I'm going to go over is I want to go over licensing, and then we're going to talk about trends, and we'll merge into trends with that. But so licensing. So I invented a software product to protect children on the internet. I wanted to get a brand to put on my technology. So I went and I did my research. I methodically and tactically looked at all the different cartoon characters that I thought would fit for my product and the market and my buyer. And at the time, it was Shrek. And Shrek was one of these brands that was loved by parents and by children at the time. He was huge, the biggest brand in the world at the time. And so I said, I'm going to get Shrek. So I made my intention. I wrote down the goal. I snail mailed, I emailed, and I called every week for like 5 months. And then I finally got the meeting. In a 20-minute meeting, I sold them on my idea. But I paid money. I wrote them a check to have the rights to use their name and their brand on my product. It was some of the best money I ever spent because the credibility it gave me was amazing. It was like I'd never experienced this before. And but I remember going to different meetings and different things, and they're like, wow, you got to deal with DreamWorks? And the sales cycle went from a normal 4-month sales cycle down to like 30 days or 2 weeks because the brand association that, oh, well, and again, I'm making stuff up, but maybe Bernd can quantify this, but it's like, well, if it's good enough for Shrek, it's good enough for me type thing. But I leverage that. And so I've done that. And then I've also invented software that we licensed out, actually the same software where people paid me a fee for me to give them the rights to put their brand on it and market as their own. So I've been on both sides of the licensing world. I've been to the licensing show no less than 7 or 8 times, I believe. And then I think we had a booth there at least 3 times. And the licensing world is ginormous. Like if you guys, no matter where you're sitting, you look up at a light bulb, you look up at a little vent, you look at a door, you look at a doorknob, you look at a chair, there is something within your eyesight that's licensed, some product, some service. And I know Bernd has his in the apparel world, but let's talk a little bit about licensing and how people can make money, additional money, by licensing a brand or licensing their brand out from your perspective, Bernd.
Yeah. So maybe very, starting out just to be sure that everybody's on the same page. Very quickly, so from my vantage point, what licensing really is it's renting someone's or renting a name in its purest form. Someone is either renting it out and they're called licensor, they're the owner of the name, or someone is renting it from someone and that's the licensee.
Or it can be a product or service too, right? Or product, I should say.
100%. And the rent that you're paying is called a royalty. And the royalty is traditionally a percentage of sales. So if you are the brand owner, if you start there, if you have something and you've spent your time and effort, we were talking about branding, and you've done all the steps and you've built your brand equity and you have a nice business and you're looking to grow, licensing is a phenomenal vehicle to expand your brand universe at a very low cost. So what you do now, so let's say if we stay within, my fashion world, let's say you're a sportswear company and you worked hard and you built your brand recognition, you're selling to a number of good stores, and you're saying, gee whiz, I would love to see more growth for my brand, and things are good, but I don't necessarily have the capital readily available to expand across multiple categories. You could now go out and seek a licensee for instance, handbags and or footwear. And now you take that one name that you created, and then you meet with qualified handbag companies, qualified footwear companies. And when you sign then a handbag and a footwear license, overnight, you go from just being this sportswear company to becoming a lifestyle company, because now not only do you have the clothes, you have the accessories that go with it, and you become the beneficiary of those sales. So when these companies start selling, you start collecting your royalty. So, and that income really drops to your bottom line, because what's involved as a brand owner, as a licensor, in operating these licenses is not all that much. The costs in bringing the product to market, the risk in bringing the product to market, that's incumbent upon the licensee. not the licensor. So for a brand owner, once you have built that brand equity we were talking about, licensing is a very, very effective vehicle to expand your brand universe and to drive incremental revenues. The one and only thing you want to make sure of is where we started out. You want to have that brand excellence in overseeing and protecting your brand. So that's why you want to engage in a process where you pick the right licensee, and then you want to have your own internal product approval processes where you still control the product goes out to markets with your brand name on them, because that could be the pitfall. And that's really the biggest challenge of licensing is if you don't know how to navigate it. Some brand owners have run into issues where they align themselves with the wrong people. But if you know what you're doing, and if you're doing it right, it's a phenomenal vehicle to drive growth and to expand your brand universe. So that's what happens as a brand owner. Now, if you flip it as a licensee, so let's say you have a core competency. And again, let's go back to just what we were talking about. Let's say you're the guy that has a great handbag company. You make phenomenal handbags, you have a nice business. However, you're under a lot of pressure on price because, you go to the stores and you're saying, here are my fantastic handbags. I call them handbags. The store is saying, that's nice. There are a lot of handbags out there called handbags. We will pay you $10 for your handbag. And you're saying, oh my goodness, but it cost me almost that to make it. At the end of the day, I'm not really making a whole lot of money on my handbags. I'm working so hard. I'm maybe even shipping a lot of dollars, but I'm really not retaining a whole lot. Well, in that case, if you have that core competency and you're making great product, you may exactly want to align yourself with a well-known brand, the Shrek of handbags, so to say, and you get that brand name, and now overnight, the very same handbag, because of the inherent value in the brand, will now allow you to charge a different price. And your operating margin is going to be entirely different. So that's the value of becoming a licensee and licensing a brand name that's consistent with your skill sets.
And I love to teach entrepreneurs, you really got to put some serious thought into this because, like, again, when these inventors were here, they invent products. They don't build companies. They don't run companies. They don't form companies. They're not CEOs and marketing guys. They just need to license their products to somebody who can do that. So with my partnership with Kevin Harrington, which Bernd also knows Kevin, he loves to license the rights to a product and pay a royalty to an inventor if it's got mass, broad infomarket type appeal, right? Mm-hmm. And then again, you go back to my little software company of software for kids and me licensing Shrek. It took me from here to here in one little, I had to pay a $25,000 minimum royalty check up front with a minimum guarantee of 75 grand. But you go for 75 grand, I put myself on a complete, going up, like if you had a 100-story building, I went up like 50, 60 stories with one deal, from a brand credibility, from a recognizable. And of course I had to sell them on how good my product was. And they had to trust that I was going to represent their brand with my product and that kind of stuff. But you can do that. And it's not hard to do, but you have to get some coaching, you have to get some mentoring, and you have to know how to maneuver the waters, because Bert and I are working on this every day. What's the percentage rate? What's the minimum royalty? What's the minimum guarantee? And again, if you don't know what you're doing, you could get your lunch eaten for you. You could end up with all kinds of problems. So it's just a matter of getting that advice. So there's always somebody out there that's done what you're thinking about doing. You're better off to pay for the coach, pay for the mentor, and eliminate those mistakes and get there faster with less mistakes and more effective than if you don't do that kind of stuff. So I love licensing. I think every entrepreneur, every business has got to maybe think about that, of how somewhere in their business plan they can leverage that to get to the next level or to give them additional credibility. Okay, so the next thing on my notes is you've shared with me some trends. So Bernd and I and our team, we have created a new company called Celebrity Lifestyle Brands. And we're working with the new generation of celebrities, the Instagrammers, the new up-and-coming artists, the influencers, the YouTubers, and we're helping them build their brand and an apparel line to monetize their social media. And as we're doing this, Bert made some statements to me about the trends of where retail's going and what's happening with retail. And of course, he's been in the middle of that for decades. And remember, what was that thing you said yesterday about stack 'em and something stack 'em? He said stack going. Share a little bit about the trends. Oh, stack them high and watch them fly. So let's talk a little bit about the trends as it relates to the apparel industry and your industry, what you've been in for so long.
Absolutely. So, well, so the stack them high and watch them fly, that was really a reference to the olden days where you could do that and you could bring in a ton of the same product and simply drive the product through because there was a certain level of uniformity in the marketplace. That's not at all where we are today. So I would say that the power in the marketplace has almost shifted, where it has shifted from the retailers and from the brands and the marketeers to the consumers, to the end user. So the internet has allowed that to happen. And I would say the trend is so strong that I really liken it to another industrial revolution. It is changing very, very quickly. And back in the day when you could stack them high and watch them fly, you were very much in a consuming economy. We are not in that economy any longer. And a lot of people like to refer to the current economy as either the experiential economy or even the dream economy. And what that means is people are still willing to spend money, but they spend money differently. So they spend money on experiences that they can share with their friends and family. So they may choose to go to a restaurant to dine and have that experience over going out and buying something for themselves. Or they may have a great hobby. They may be into diving or photography, and they may spend money on supporting that, but then they travel to go and fulfill that experience of their hobby. So that's where we at. And the brands and the businesses that don't recognize that are I think, in for a lot of trouble. And that's why we're seeing now a lot of the very large retailers have been recently reporting their earnings. And I think basically, with one exception, they were all hugely disappointing. They're disappointing for a number of reasons. One is convenience. We're living in a time where time is probably the biggest luxury of all. The scarcest of all resources is time. So if you're just picking something up, why would you ever go to the store? Why wouldn't you buy it online? Number one. But number two, it's the issue of the experience. There hasn't been a lot of innovation at retail in a very long time. So I think that unless the brick and mortar retailers turn their experience into something that is really an actual experience, they're going to continue to see these heavily declining, shrinking sales number with a lot of pressure on their margin because the consumer is opting to spend their money and their time elsewhere.
Yeah. No, and that's the kind of stuff that you as an entrepreneur, again, you got to think ahead. You got to forecast the future. You got to innovate or die. We were talking about that the other day, Bert and I were. You got to innovate or die, and you got to continually innovate. It's not like you innovate once and, okay, you can build a business on that forever. It's like you got to continually innovate and keep moving forward.
So in the fashion space, honestly, I like to say obsolete your product before your customer does it for you. At the very moment when you think, oh, yeah, I have it all figured out. This is the formula. No, I don't have to really, work so hard anymore. I'm just running the formula. Well, that's the beginning to the end.
Yep.
There is no preset formula. You have to constantly innovate, constantly challenge yourself, and constantly obsolete your product, as I said, before you get caught napping at the wheel.
Very cool. All right, so I want to kind of merge into, I'm trying to keep this to right around an hour. Now, we can go long. If you keep asking questions, we're going to keep answering questions because we want to provide value to you guys. And I love this conversation. I think it's very insightful and very valuable to those that want to build a business. They want to build something with with an exit in mind. That's the other thing. I see entrepreneurs all the time dreaming out starting the business and doing what they can to start a business and get in business, but they never think through the exit. When do you want to retire? Who are you going to sell to? How are you going to sell? And all that you have to back into today from a foundation standpoint. So we want you to do that kind of stuff. And I also want you to know that, yesterday, Bert and I were talking about, different strategies and tactics and discussions on developing your image, developing your brand identity, developing what are those touch points and distribution and all part of your brand book. But because of time, we're going to run into questions, and then I'm going to say this too. We are doing an event called Angel Money Marketing Live, and Bert has agreed to come out and speak and hang out with us for a couple days in Los Angeles, June 24th, 25th, and 26th, right near the LAX airport. So if you're somebody who you want to increase your sales and marketing, you want to generate more money, you want to build your business, you want to get some mentorship and some help, this is our way of doing it in a group setting, because I charge $2,000 a day, Bert's $50,000 a month, and the only way you can get us is at an event. And I begged Bert to come to our event. He said he'd come. He's going to hang out. He's going to speak. And we're going to be able to meet and break bread and eat together and mentor entrepreneurs for a weekend. There's only going to be 100 people there. This event will sell out. So if you want to get a ticket, we'll put the link on here. We want to see you in Los Angeles. And we're really going to get into those things for building a brand book. But let me get into some questions real quick. So we first have Robin, and Robin asked a question about the brand book. She's saying, is there any standard for the size or for all of the components that should be in the brand book?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I will say the answer is yes and no. Each brand's brand book ends up being a unique work output, if you like. There's no, brand book that looks exactly the same. Having said that, I would say any type of successful brand book should have the history or the origins of the brand somehow. It needs to speak to, where the brand came from, what the brand stands for. And clearly, as you're building that brand equity, there needs to be something in there about what the brand name, the logo, how it looks, how it should be used, because that's part of what you want to define. So clearly, the output really depends a bit also on industry. If you're in fashion and you're creating, maybe you have two different brand identifier. Maybe one is the name that goes in the neck and the name of the collection. Let's say Nike as an example. But they also have a logo. Sometimes it might be too long. If you want to identify the product somehow so people can see what you're wearing, which is, by the way, a very powerful and very personal marketing vehicle, branding the product so people can see it. Well, if you want to do that, it might be very lengthy and it may not be very, should we say, convenient or aesthetically pleasing to have a big name written on the left chest. So in the example of Nike, they have a swoosh. They've done a phenomenal job, and there's no one in this universe that don't know what the swoosh means. So what you want to see in the brand book is the name, how it's being used, and any other brand identifiers, any other identifying marks that you use for the brand. That needs to be very clearly defined in the brand book.
Yeah, and one of our clients just formed a brand new foundation called the Ark of Noah Foundation, and theirs started off as simple as the logo in a black and white, in a color, in a reverse white, so it could show up on different backgrounds, and 3 separate colors. That everything, the website, everything is there's 3 separate colors and 2 fonts, and that was just the beginning of it. So that kind of just what it was.
Let's be very clear. I am not at all advocating that it should be any more complicated than that. I don't necessarily think that having multiple fonts and multiple colors makes for better branding. The best branding is consistent messaging. So you just need to kind of be clear on what that messaging is. How do you use it? What does it look like? And it needs to permeate everything you do.
Yeah. All right. So these questions are flying in. So we got that one done. And the next one is, And I know you got a good answer for this too. So, like this answer that how do I get my brand in stores? And it's like it's not just that easy. So what would you tell somebody that thinks they could get a brand in a store? And even you and I were talking about we're working with some C-list celebrities that got millions and millions and millions of fans. And you're like, they're not getting in retail yet. So if somebody thinks they're going to get their brand in stores, what would you tell them, or how would they do it?
Well, again, it differs obviously, right? So it depends on the industry, it depends on brand, it depends on what you have created. Because if it was all that easy, we would all have our own brands and we all be just selling to stores. So one thing that actually has changed in the world that we now live in is, as we just talked about, the kind of fundamental macro change of the internet. So in the olden days, if you couldn't break into retail, you were in essence locked out of the market. You were done. So it's for brands starting out today, I don't think I would start out by saying, oh, how many stores can I get into and what stores? I believe I would probably start out by defining what is my brand, what's unique, why is it credible, what problem am I solving? And if I can answer all those questions and I have a brand, I think the first thing I would do is to expand my brand communication by creating a website. And on that website, I would have my product, but I would also have content that's brand relevant. Content is incredibly important. So I had mentioned earlier about how a brand makes you feel. Well, if you have your brand featured alongside certain content that evokes a look and a feel, solves a problem, addresses a need, that's very powerful. And it really leads to how you end up. So very quick kind of anecdote, and that just kind of speaks to that. And without naming any brands, I would say here's an example of a blender as an example. And this is not necessarily the branding, it's about how you make people feel. Two blender companies went to market more or less the same time. One was created by engineers. One was created by a company that felt that they were solving a need. So the company solving a need, called their blender something along, the wellness blend or well blend, let's call it that. And they made a commercial that featured happy mom, healthy looking kids, making smoothies, wearing her yoga clothes. And it was an overall feel good, approach to marketing. That's this blender. The other company that's made by engineers, they were, we have the most powerful motor and our blades cuts everything. They made a commercial too. And to drive home how great their blender was, they blended up a cell phone. Now, the one that focused on the wellness and the message, they went through the roof, and it's a very, very successful company today. The one made by engineers that probably had the better blender, they're still struggling on the brink of obsolescence because no one had any desire to blend up the cell phone. They didn't make anyone feel anything other than, why on earth would I want to do that? So, so again, that just speaks to the power of messaging. Now, going back to how do you actually break in at retail? You do all the stuff that we said first. So there is some credibility to the brand that you have created. You do probably go through the steps of creating that online presence, so you have something to show for yourself. And then, quite frankly, if you have no in, and more practically, there are different ways. There are people out there that makes their living selling product, sales reps, and you could take out an ad for a sales rep online, and then you pay a commission, a certain fee for them to leverage their relationships to take you into retail. But if you don't do that, then you do what Greg did with DreamWorks. Then there's just an awful lot of hard work. You identify the stores where you think your product really belongs. You absolutely go and you visit the store first. You never, ever, ever call the store without having been in the store, knowing what product is sold in the store, what products you compete with, what prices that they sell. So you have to do all of that homework. You need to identify what I often like to refer to as white space. if your product is just 1 out of 10 that they already have on the floor and the field is very crowded, you have to assume there's no really good reason why they would want to put your product in there. So there has to be a need you're fulfilling. And then you need to just keep on calling and following up until you get that appointment and you get in front of them and you can explain why your product fills that white space on their retail floor and why it will help them improve their business if they carry your product.
No, so now let me give you a couple ideas that I have and that I've actually done. So first thing you want to do, and again, I'm a marketing guy, right? Marketing. Create a demand first, right? If you create a demand first through the internet, create your own e-commerce store, put it on Amazon.com, sell it on eBay, sell it on Etsy, create a demand first, create a following, create a social media following. That helps your chances to get into retail. Number two, I'll give you another real world example. So I did go license Shrek. Now I have a brand that's worthy of getting into retail because he was already in retail and all that kind of stuff. Then I ended up doing some homework and some research, and I found this people that I can't remember the name of it, but they did this. I'm going to refer to it as a buyer's show. And what they did was really, really unique. Is they flew in the buyers from Walgreens and Walmart and all the different places, and they'd pay for their plane ticket, they'd pay for their hotel, they'd pay for golf, and then guys like me paid a $15,000 or $20,000 deal, and I get to go there, and I pitch. In one day, I think I pitched like 19 retailers, and what it was, they took out a whole floor of a hotel, like I think it was like the Embassy Suites, and they took out all the beds and all the stuff out of the room, and they gave me a table in there, and I set up this hotel room as a showroom, and then the buyer just came in every 20 minutes, for 4 or 5 hours for 2 or 3 days in a row, and I ended up getting POs and stuff and Walgreens and some different retailers. And it was a much more effective way to do it. So there's always an easier way to do it than beating your head and not doing it right. You got to get the mentoring, you got to get the coaching, you got to do your research, you got to figure that stuff out.
All of that is true. I want to just add 2 quick, anecdotes very quickly onto what you're saying about creating demand, and it's pretty interesting. So the first one is, and this is going back many, many years, and I'm definitely dating myself, but back in the day, we had something called cassette decks, and the best cassette deck universally back then, the wisdom was that it was Maxell. And I was, as I told you, a student back in the day at Copenhagen Business School, and all the way back then, Maxell was looking to break into Denmark. What they did was they paid a bunch of students a couple of bucks. And they were paid to do exactly one thing, to go to every record store and every music store and ask, do you have Maxell? Do you have the Maxell tapes? I hear the Maxell tape decks are the best ones. Do you have those? They had this campaign go for a month, and they just paid kids to go in and torment all the stores about this product that the stores didn't have and never heard of. Then they started calling the stores with a Maxell tape deck. Took over the market overnight. So that's one, and that's going back many years, but it still works. The other one, which is actually also hysterical, and it's kind of sort of the same setting. So what you refer to with a hotel is obviously there's a variation of the trade shows. And for many, many years, one of the biggest trade shows in the fashion industry was called Magic, and took place originally in Los Angeles. It now takes place in Las Vegas, and there are a multitude of these shows, now more or less under one roof and or closely affiliated with each other. When FUBU launched, and they finally had enough traction that they went to a trade show for the first time, they went to Magic, and they took out the small booth with 2 tables. And originally, the guys that came in to work with Damon and the founders of FUBU, they had already an outerwear company, and they had 6 kind of middle-aged guys that were selling outerwear. They now all of a sudden had this FUBU product, which was this young men's streetwear. One of the leaders of FUBU back then called the first salesman and said, this is what I want you to do. Call all of your buyers, that's all of the stores, call all of the stores that you have in your territory. Invite them in for 9 o'clock on the first day of the show. And of course, the guy said, no, but I can't work with all of them at one time. And he's like, do I pay you to think? Just do as I say. They did that with every single salesman. 6 salesmen called on each and every one of each of their 100 customers, invited all of them for 9 o'clock on the opening day of the show. When all the other buyers walked into the show, they saw this one booth that was completely mobbed and overrun by people.
I love it.
And fear is a very big motivator. And they were all like, oh my God, what's going on over there? That must be something amazing. And that's how they launched it.
No, I love that. That's marketing, everybody. That's a great marketing tip. And it's interesting. Just today, we had an investor in our office, and he invested in a company called Fireman's Brew. And it's a brew where, you know, built by firemen for firemen, and it's really doing well, but they need to grow. And I said, what I would do is I'd do a direct mail campaign to all the places, like say I want it in this area, these retailers, right? These liquor stores or wherever you're going to sell the beer at. I'd do direct mail campaigns to the neighborhoods, all the firemen in the neighborhoods and all the police people in the neighborhoods going, hey, Fireman's Brew, you can now get it at Albertsons. Go to Albertsons and pick up your 6-pack. And so with the same concept, they'd all be walking to Albertsons go, where's the Fireman's Brew? Where's the Fireman's Brew? And you'd be having them ask. So then when the sales guy called, it was like, yeah, we've been having people ask like crazy for this beer. It's like awesome. I love it. It's awesome. Okay, so let's dive in. So I got a couple. We'll keep going through these. Are you okay, Bernd, to stay on and answer questions?
Absolutely loving it.
All right, cool. So where'd she go? Stephanie says, how can you get your product in front of celebrities? Now, I'm going to ask Bernd this question, but I'm going to answer this first one because I have over 112, I think, something like that, pictures of me with celebrities endorsing my software product for kids. And people would go, dude, you are like so connected, right? Or you're like always hanging out with celebrities. And they were never really A-listers. There was always B-listers and C-listers. But, you know, people from Happy Days and this TV thing and that TV thing or Nickelodeon. But literally over 100, like 112 celebrities. And I can tell anybody how to do it. I can get anybody listening right now in front of 100 celebrities in the next 3 months, shaking their hands, taking pictures with them. And I don't care who you are, I can get you in front of anybody who wants this. So if that's you, you just got to let us know I can do it. But here I'm going to tell you how. There's these things called gift suites. And these gift suites are tied to all of the Grammys and every award program there is. And you pay money, right? You got to pay to play. You have to invest. And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs come to us and go, well, I don't have money. Look, if you don't have money, go get a job. Don't be an entrepreneur. You're a wantrepreneur, right? But you have to invest, and you basically buy a table, and you take your product there, and these people organize the celebrities to walk by your booth, shake your hand, take a picture with you, and you give them one of your products. And if you're lucky and you got a great product, celebrities will go, wow, and they'll want to endorse your product. I think it was Monster or Rockstar, maybe not Rockstar, but one of the first, what was the very first energy drink? They launched their product at a gift suite, and they launched lots of products like this. So that's one way to do it. It's not hard to do it. And I actually created a product called Hollywood Profit Faucet. And the other way is you can just contact their managers. It's not hard to track down any celebrity's manager. Now that one's going to cost you a lot more than the gift suites. I promise you that. But it does work. So what's your best quick advice on how to get in front of a celebrity and talk to a celebrity about an endorsement?
Well, so in addition to what you mentioned, another kind of great vehicle is their stylists. So if you're talking about any type of fashion, anything that you can wear, the reality is there are people out there whose sole job it is to dress the celebrities. So if you can reach out to a stylist and you can send them your product, they will actually, as part of what they do anyway, put your product on the celebrity. And similar to what you said, if the product is good, if the product is right, if the product makes the celebrity feel good about it, now you have you in to open your conversation. Similarly, we even kind of back in the day with the FUBU or Fat Farm, we completely refined that. Now, I would say music videos, etc., they're much more in tune, and if the logo is too dominant, it's often blurred out, etc. Back in the day, none of that happened. We actually had staff whose sole job it was to know when and where someone would be making a music video, and they would have literally huge bags of products, and they would arrive with their bags of products and just hand it out right before they were going to shoot the video. Here, take this, put this on, and so on and so forth. Unbelievable. And that's still, of course, they just differently. So you have to innovate, and you have to, for lack of a better term, hustle. They're not going to come and find you.
Out of the box marketing. You got to think out of the box, and you got to think out of the box marketing. So here's a friend of mine. Andrea asked this question about her granddaughter. Her granddaughter, she actually wears the BU clothing burnt, and her name is Sarah. She's 11 years old. Sarah has been on DreamWorks TV and Awesomeness TV, and she's been singing. And I actually met her because she was at a singing. It's kind of an interesting story, but she was in a singing class with Symphonique. She's 11 years old. So Andrea's asking, what can she do, and how can they start to build her brand now, even though she's still that young kid that's trying to, she's 11 years old, right? She's like, well, so what would you say to her? What's your best advice for her to get started on building the brand for Sarah?
Well, I think maybe the simplest and easiest way for someone that age with a talent to start building a brand is simply just to start with Facebook and social media, and create your own website, a personalized website, and start just posting content. So you start building kind of a portfolio of information and content. And then if there is something that Sarah kind of cares about in particular or stands for, then maybe give additional focus to that. It can be a cause, it can be something she enjoys doing, and start building that profile. And quite frankly, I don't know that you need to do a whole lot more early on, because at 11, your personal brand is going to evolve a lot. So to go in and try to define it narrowly based upon what she stands for as an 11-year-old may not be particularly helpful to where the brand will evolve to in just a couple of years. But get that content. Make sure that you get that social media following. That's huge. As I said earlier, the monetization of social media is the holy grail of all marketing right now. Think about it for a second, Greg, and you're a marketeer. Just think about this. The way this universe used to be. Think how much money large multinational companies, think about how much money they would spend on trying to analyze all the data, trying to anticipate what consumers might be doing going forward, so they can come up with a vehicle, a product, a way to market to them. Well, with social media, all that has changed. You have millions of people telling you exactly what they like and what they want to do. You have 30 million people saying, and maybe the number is higher now, I love Nicki Minaj. I love everything she does. I love what she says. I mean, it's fantastic. It's a very, very valuable asset. So I would say, above all else, at this early stage, particularly as someone as young as 11, just start building a social media profile.
Yeah, no, and I'll add to that too. Is Andrea, you and Darren, if you're listening too, you can't do enough, and as long as you're consistent, and again, you control your destiny, because you're creating a demand for her, you're creating a following for her. Again, creating a market first, and you see some of these YouTubers, especially with her acting and singing. YouTube is her place of choice, and of course Instagram and Snapchat and that kind of stuff. But you build that following, and then you can get more shows and get invited on more TV and whatever that is. So, and again, create that logo, create that brand color. She's bubbly, she's happy, she's like so sweet, she's amazing. So create something that represents that from, I forget what they think when you send out the pictures and stuff, but create that little package and create that little branding. And that actually, the branding, another word in this instance, is presentation. Like if you're trying to get her a gig on a show, or you're trying to get her to sing somewhere, what's the presentation you present to the person? So if you can make that presentation stand out, be different, out of the box, and something way different, you're going to get more stuff for it. It's going to help her with her brand. So I hope that helps, Andrea. And thank you for being on. We appreciate you. So here's a good question, Bernd. And you and I were working on this yesterday. You introduced me to somebody. They didn't put their name in, but bizsynth.com says, is there a specific kind of attorney that handles brand licensing? And let's give them our best advice on legal counsel.
So there are obviously a number of attorneys that specialize in licensing, and we work with a few of them. So maybe the simplest, I don't know, Greg, how specific do you want to be? Because yes, there are absolutely, and different attorneys do different things. So you do want to align yourself with someone that has experience in the world of licensing, and it makes a big difference. So you do want to research, and then if you have a lawyer that you work with or a firm that you talk to, you should specifically find out if they have a licensing practice. And if they don't, they may be good for what you're doing, but you need to seriously consider using a different firm for your licensing. And by the way, hand in hand with that, it is not only managing the process of creating licensing contracts and agreements, it is protecting your IP, your intellectual property. And that's really done through trademarking. And that's also something that your lawyer will do for you. And you file that with the USPTO. And what the trademark does, it creates a special protection for you. So your mark, your brand is sitting there. And if someone else, let's say you work real hard and you start succeeding, and someone else comes along and they try to kind of mimic what you're doing and try to infringe upon what you have done, well, that trademark is what's going to protect you to keep them away. So you want the right type of firm taking care of that for you.
Yeah, and my comment on that is, when I had my broker-dealer, my investment banking firm in the 80s, we spent, gosh, it seems like millions of dollars on attorneys, because it's like every week we were paying some attorneys some fees for an offering document, a private placement memorandum, a blue sky filing, something of that nature. And anymore, here's what I think. With attorneys, you get what you pay for, one. And two, there are attorneys that are specialized. It kind of go. Here's a really easy analogy. If you have a problem with your foot, you're not going to go to a heart surgeon, right? So same thing with attorneys. And Brad, Bernd actually introduced me to an attorney that does a lot of stuff in these areas. And we do have attorneys that we can recommend you to, but we don't do that unless you're a member of our organization. So I'm going to go ahead and send you guys a copy of or how you can join and become a member of ours. We have a membership. In our membership, we have vetted people that we do business with, that we're partners with, that we trust, that we recommend, and we would surely share that with you when you become a member or whatever you need. It doesn't matter if that's an attorney, a webmaster, a marketing guy, whatever that is. But I really think you get what you pay for. And here's the thing. When you invest in a firm that's really big or really expensive, one of the other things you're paying for is their experience, their expertise, their knowledge, their know-how, but it's their relationships, right? Sometimes that attorney can open up a door, and again, in my world, to an investor, to a private equity firm, to a hedge fund, to a broker-dealer, to somebody that can take you from A to M in one introduction. So you got to think about that, and depending on how valuable your intellectual property is or the licensing deal you want to do it right. He was even sharing with me this morning when I was talking to the attorney this morning. He's like, when you're doing a deal with somebody else, you got to make sure you read their other agreements so you're not infringing on somebody else's agreement. There's all kinds of bag of worms that can open up if you don't know what you're doing and getting the right attorney. So my suggestion is join our network. Let us refer you somebody. And if that doesn't work for you, just do your homework. The internet's there, research, do reviews, look at the Yelps, look at all that kind of stuff, and pay the money to get good quality advice. Because especially in my world, the legal world, you don't do your securities offerings right, you raise money, you go to jail for doing stuff the wrong way. So it's just not worth it. Okay, and then Kai was asking me, what is the licensing convention that I was talking about? It's called the Licensing Show. And you can just Google the Licensing Show or licensingshow.com, I think it is. And again, like Bert said, I think it was LA, New York. Now it's in Vegas. I'm not sure they do it in New York anymore. But it's amazing. It's amazing. Everything under the sun is being licensed there. It's incredible. Okay. Okay, so Theodore is asking a question. So Theodore wants to buy a hotel in Aruba, and he wants to do singles travel. He wants to organize the singles travel to Aruba under the umbrella and the name of Hotel California. And actually, the hotel he wants to buy, or maybe no, wait, he did buy it. It's called Hotel California in Aruba. So I want to get a celebrity to brand my product and help him. He says, let's say Ricky Martin. So do we have any advice on how to get that Ricky Martin, or what advice we give him on how to find a celebrity that might be interested in that type of thing?
Well, I have to say, if the name is Hotel California, as much as the Eagles isn't what they used to be, that would probably be a pretty logical starting place. Being that they are the ones that had so much success with the Hotel California, and at the very least, obtain maybe the rights to the song, because as you start promoting and running commercials, maybe having Hotel California playing in the background isn't all bad. But celebrity real estate branding is interesting. It's a newer field. I would say up and coming on some level. And I don't think there's any one, that's a bigger question. There isn't like one, just do this and you will get the right person. I think it goes back to what we talked about. It has to be authentic. It has to be credible. So if you're talking about the hotel and if you're talking about something in Aruba, I think you need to kind of find a feeling, well, what's the connection? Just a random name, well, I guess you can create some type of story that this random person is traveling and ending up in Aruba. But better if you could find either someone that has a relationship with Aruba and or has a relationship with hospitality, someone that is known for luxury, luxury living. And the question is also, what are we looking for? Are we just looking for a face? Meaning, is it an endorsement deal? Or are we looking for someone to be more heavily involved? Because another approach you could take would be to speak to a famous designer. And maybe you have, you invite the famous designer to design a room or the lobby or a special suite. And then all of a sudden, you get to tap into a whole separate universe, which is once removed, but not very far from celebrity, because we all know when celebrities come together to celebrate each other and their accomplishments, the primary conversation is about what they're wearing or who they're wearing. So it's very closely related. So that's another approach where you can kind of turn, the paradigm a little bit upside down and go at it from a different angle. But these are stuff, these are conversations we can get deeper into. I think not in this forum.
Yeah, no, we'll do that kind of stuff at Angel Money Marketing Live in June. You got to be out there, Theodore. Hey, and I got to say this. I don't know if you guys get how wicked smart that was, right? I love that term, wicked smart. That was like such a wicked smart idea, what he just said about getting a designer. See how out of the box that was? And that's newsworthy. People like to write about that. Bloggers like to blog about that. The press likes to pick that up and do a story. And that was just a wicked smart idea, Bert. I love that. That was awesome. Very cool. Okay, so we got a couple more here. Could you please explain how to make licensing art business like a drawing, and how to be very unique in a very poor marketplace like the Middle East? That's from Miriam. So one of my experiences when I went to the licensing show a couple times is they have a lot of artists at the licensing show, rows and rows of them. And people license their art for drapes, for bedding, for couch material, for making couches and seats. It was just amazing to me. Rows of artists. There were sculptors, and people licensed these sculptors to sculpt things and do things. It was just amazing. So it is interesting. But again, Miriam, I think where you need to start is you have to build your presence and your brand and who you are and what you embellish online. Create that online stuff. And if you're not familiar with Etsy, ETSY.com, Etsy is a great, amazing marketplace for creators and artists to sell their goods and works to other like-minded people. And it's huge, a lot of traffic there, and you could probably be very very successful online. And again, we build websites. We have a division called Angel Marketing, and we build websites. We do marketing campaigns. And the cool thing about the internet is, for the first time in history, because of Facebook and what's going on, you can target your target audience in 30 minutes. Age, gender, geographic, income, married, not married, single, whatever that is, and you can put an advertisement in front of them in 30 minutes. And 3 hours from now, I can tell you if you pick the right audience, and you keep testing that until you find an audience, and you can make it convert and work for itself. Bernd, I don't know if you have any other comment on that one.
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive, and I agree. It really starts with building a presence online. And then I will say the only other thing is, the power of licensing is amazing. However, you do need to have that brand equity. So the art needs to be unique and or stand for something. If it looks like everything else, you're kind of losing the right to charge a fee for people to use it a little bit.
Right. Now, here's a good question. Robin's asking a financial question. Is it still possible to get smart money? I understand it will cost more equity. So for those of you who maybe not familiar with what she's asking, I'm constantly in all my webinars, and every time I give a conversation, I'm talking about professional investors, which is smart money, and high net worth investors, which is not. Right? So you have dentists and chiropractors and surgeons that make a lot of money. They like to invest, but they don't necessarily look into the things that smart money would look into. So for instance, with the guys that were here yesterday, hey, well, we got these inventions. Well, who owns the inventions? Well, I do. Well, are you going to license those to the corporation, or are you going to put them in the corporation? But, depending on how you do that, and smart money is going to ask for all these questions, and they're going to take your financial statements, which I have some here on my desk somewhere, and they're going to go through them, and they're going to look at the line items. They're going to have their financial guys make sure that everything's in line with everything you're doing. So one of the things that we do is we have a funding optimization and mentorship program. We charge $3,000 for that. And what we do is we review your business plan, we review your offering documents, we review your pitch deck, we do some cursory due diligence on you, we do a little bit of background checks on the industry, what's going on, and we coach you and mentor you to get your pitch and your presentation what we call investor grade. And when I mean investor grade, that's like Robin's referring to as for the smart money. Because the theory is, and the thought process is if we coach you and mentor you in your fundraising process to become investor grade and smart money worthy, then when it comes to high net worth investors, it's like taking candy from a baby. We make you a money magnet, right? We help you become a money magnet as opposed to a money repellent. So the answer to your question, Robin, is yes, it is still possible. There's billions of dollars of smart money out there. It's more competitive. It's more difficult to get. But if you have something that's worthy, and that's the other thing you have to understand is you feel you're worthy of investor dollars, but are you really, into what investor? So angel investors like a certain type of returns, certain type of risk, certain type of valuations. Other investors, real estate investors, like real estate, hard assets, income. Traders like day trading. They like that in and out, in and out. There's all kinds of different places where you can find and get money. So like Bernd's been talking about with your brand, and you identify your target market and how you want to relate to them and how you're authentic with them, and that's how you're going to build that brand in the marketplace. We do the same thing with investors. We want to help you profile who's your identical investor, or not identical, who's the ideal investor for your deal. For instance, typically people that invest in biotech don't invest in apparel deals. And people that invest in apparel deals don't invest in biotech deals because they're not familiar with it. People like to invest in what they're familiar with. So the first thing you do when you're looking for investors is work on getting your pitch and your presentation and everything about you investor grade. Then start to, who is that ideal model? What age, what gender, what geographic area, what are their psychographics? What magazines do they read? What movies do they watch? And start to figure that out. And then the internet, and again, our membership. In our membership, we have all kinds of tools, information, checklists, templates that help you do this so you can find those investors that will invest in your deal. And you've got to position yourself with such confidence and with such professionalism and with such excellence that you can become a money magnet. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Bernd, but that's my comment.
Yeah, that was very comprehensive. The only other thing I would add to that is that, in my mind, the smart money is more strategic. So if you are attracting smart money along with that investment, I think your expectation should be that you're getting someone that understands your business and the industry and can actually contribute. And they may very well, depending on the level of investment, insist on some type of involvement along with their investment, maybe a board seat or an advisory board. And I think in some instances, there could be an expectation from the smart money that they can provide additional guidance and or leverage relationships, opening doors, etc. Whereas the other money that's just coming from high net worth individuals and or funds that are not necessarily playing in that industry, it's a passive investment. You get the money, but you don't get that level of involvement.
Yeah, well said. Okay, a couple of real quick ones. Don's asking, how long is the response time after registering with the Angel Investors Network? Don, usually we get back to the entrepreneurs within 24 to, say, 48, 72 hours, like 1 to 3 days. If you haven't got a call from us yet, you can call our offices at 760-233-2860 and talk to one of the guys here. We get between, on a low, small day, 5 to 7, 10 entrepreneurs looking for investors, and on a busy day, 50 people. So we get a lot of deals, a lot of deal flow coming through, and we're always trying to weed out the entrepreneurs from the entrepreneurs. And I don't say that with trying to be demeaning. It's just like, look, we take this stuff serious. Our time is valuable. We want to make sure we're dealing with people that are serious. So hopefully that answers your question, Don. And then Tyler asked, any mentors you can suggest about pitching? Well, we're good for that. So maybe we can help you out, Tyler. You can, if you haven't applied at angelnetwork.com, you can go fill out the application on angelnetwork.com and get in our little system. And then Linda asked a question, which is a really good question, Linda, and that's, how do you get to the correct person in a company to discuss licensing? And I'm going to let Bernd answer that one.
Well, so I customarily like to start on the top and work my way down as opposed to starting at the bottom. So I think you just reach in as high as you can in the organization and explain your business. And more often than not, if you are looking to license a brand, meaning becoming a licensee, if the brand is of that prominence that they should have licensees, more often than not, they will have someone that actually works in licensing already. So that's a title. There's a VP of licensing, there's a president of licensing, there's a licensing director, there's a licensing manager. So, and if it's the other way around, you're looking for someone to license your brand, well, then you want to speak to the owner operator of the business, the handbag company we were talking about earlier, for instance. So, but I like to just start as far up as I can, and normally you get better results that way. I still remember, just again, one more very quick anecdote, and this is many years ago when I had my own company in LA, and I was at a sales call, and I was up in Seattle, and I had a cancellation of an appointment, and it irked me so much that I figured I can't just sit there, because I had blocked out 2 hours of my day to work with this client that canceled last minute. So I packed some of my samples, put them in a garment bag, put them on my shoulder. I left my hotel room, and I went down to the closest store I could find. It was called Nordstrom. Remember, I'm from Norway. I just arrived. So I walked into the store, and I asked to speak to Mr. Nordstrom. A lot of back and forth and calling, and security guards and people on the phone. And why on earth would I see Mr. Nordstrom? I explained I had come from Norway, and I was here to see Mr. Nordstrom. Well, by the time it was all over, I was taken into a private elevator. I was taken all the way up to the penthouse, and I walked into a huge corner office. And the guy took one look at me, and he started to laugh. And he said, you know when the last time a salesperson was in this room? I had no idea. And that was obviously over 30 years ago. But he got a good laugh. And I was then walked down to the 11th floor where all the senior management of Nordstrom worked. And I was introduced from the CEO, owner, his last name was Nordstrom, to the buying staff. And that's how I started selling Nordstrom. Start
That's
at the
awesome.
top.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and in my experience with the licensing show, Shrek and all these different companies, they had a licensing division. It's like that's who you went to. You went and talked to them. So now Robin's bringing up a couple things. Hey, this is the last call for questions, everybody. So if you have any questions, we're going to take one or two more. I think I've got through everybody's. If I missed you, there was so much stuff here. I'm sorry, but last chance for questions. We'll wrap this up. We've been going an hour and a half, and I really appreciate Bernd's time. Robin has a Blue Torture website. It's a looks like a lifestyle brand. She's got apparel, jewelry, kitchen, beauty, more. She's a $25 billion market, novelty accessories. June will work to visit LA. Yeah, you need to get out here, Robin. So again, my request to everybody who you really want to get ahead, you really want to make your business a go, you want to succeed, we want to help you succeed. And we would like to see you come visit us for our event, Angel Money Marketing Live. It's June 24th, 25th, and 26th, right by the LAX airport, the Embassy Suites. And for 3 days, you're going to have access to me, access to guys like Bernd, other people that we all have core competencies, we all have relationships, we all have black books, and we all want to do joint ventures, we all want to make money, and we all want to help people get where they want to go because we all subscribe to the mindset, if you help enough people get what they want, we'll get what we want. And I'm telling you, for the measly, and right now you can get a ticket for $497, and I'm doing a 2-for-1 Veterans Day special. So here's what happens. You go to the AMM Live, you buy your ticket now. By tomorrow night at midnight, this is gone. You can't do this. At $497, you get 2-for-1. So you can bring a spouse, a business partner, a friend, a son. And if you don't have anyone to bring, just let us know, and we're going to donate that ticket to a worthy veteran. And we're going to give away tickets to veteran entrepreneurs to come to our event. So you go there and you're going to get a free year membership to our membership. That's $470 value. So you're getting your ticket for two for $497. You're getting a $470 value of our membership. I'm also throwing in a year VIP account to BizPad. I'm one of these task management fanatics. I don't believe in time management. I believe in project and task management. And we have a software company where we manage all of our projects, all of our investments, all of our clients on a thing called BizPad, BIZPAD.com. It's $97 a month for a VIP account. I'm going to give you a year's worth of that for free. That's $1,164 value. But you got to go sign up before Friday because these things are going to go away if you don't sign up. And the price is going up as well. We're raising the price to $997, and it's not a 2-for-1. So we want to see you guys out there. The benefits are we're going to teach you strategy, tactics, real world stuff that you can lead and double your revenues. I don't care what business you're in. Matter of fact, I even have a guarantee that if you go home and you execute, implement what I teach, and you don't increase your revenues by 20%, I'll pay you double your money back. That's my double your money back guarantee. And I can pretty much guarantee you that if you do implement what I tell you to do, you're going to double, triple, maybe even quadruple your revenues because that's how powerful the information we're going to share. It's worth your time to be there. It's the best investment you can make. In addition to that, the relationships you're going to make, and you got to go to our website and look at the testimonies. The relationships you make, deals are being made, deals are being struck. You're finding different things. And I teach the mindset of helping each other, right? So the idea is that, I forget that term, but it's like I know a certain amount of people, you know a certain amount of people, Bert knows a certain amount of people. And once we get a trust level with each other, we're willing to share relationships to help somebody, there isn't anybody you can't get to. Oh, that's what I'm thinking of, that 6 degrees of separation, right? We can get you to the right people, but we have to build a trust and a relationship. You just don't invest. Investors don't invest in people they haven't met. So you want to build rapport with people. You want to make relationships with people. That's going to help build your business. So I'm going to look for a question, and you see if you have any comments on that, Bernd. I'm going to see if there's any more questions that have come in. Oh.
No comments on that one, Greg. I think that was really very solid. That's how it all works. It's the function of synergies and 1 + 1 equaling 3 or more.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so Lee says, Greg and Bert, excellent call. Thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for your continued relationship. Thank you so much for your expertise and time. I very much appreciated it. Oh, Robin says torture in French means turtle in French. So it's okay. So it's blue torture, but it means turtle in French. Okay, thank you for that, Robin. I want to see you in June, Robin. I like what you're doing, and because you kind of have some apparel and some specialty, and you're doing some shipping, there might be something we could do together. And Theodore says, thanks for the great advice, guys. We really appreciate it. Robin said, thank you. Greg and Bernd, awesome webinar. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate your time. So, Bernd, I'm going to let you say your last closing words, and then I'll close things up.
Yeah. So I feel we have gotten to cover an awful lot. So I don't think I'm going to rehash anything other than just to say, hard work and branding and brand messaging and authenticity and credibility and staying on brand. All of that matters. It matters a lot. And if you do all of that, it allows you to create something called brand equity. And that brand equity is worth a lot of money to you. So on that note, thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And I hope to see you all in LA.
Thank you for Bernd. We really appreciate your time. And again, I can't emphasize enough, I'm now in business with Bernd. Bernd is this mogul, this icon dealing with the biggest celebrities in the world. He now is my business partner. I feel so humbled. I thank you so much for joining us. But how did I do it? I put myself in a position to meet people and build relationships, build high integrity relationships. I met Bernd through Kevin Harrington, who I met 5 years ago, right? And then through us investing and working with Star Shop, I meet Bernd. Here we are 9 months later in business together, 8 months later in business together. So that's how it works. Put yourself in a position to meet the people, change your life. One relationship can take you to a whole different level. So with that being said, I see everyone saying thank you. Slade said thanks. Robin said thanks. Lee said thanks. Thank you very much, everybody. So here's what I want you to do. Get your ticket to Angel Money Marketing Live before the price goes up. Get your 2-for-1. Join it. Get your free membership. I want to see you in June at Angel Money Marketing Live. And until then, do what I do. Wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude, and then tell somebody you love them, and you'll have a better day. This is Greg Ryder signing off.
Bye, guys.